Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to this week's edition of SICW Championship Wrestling. And what a special guest we have here tonight with us. And it's a little bit different to here tonight. And we're going to talk about the reason why. I'm joined with my dear, lovely friend, Miss Barbara Goodish. Barbara, thank you, and thanks for joining SICW Championship Wrestling.
Well, thank you so much, Herb. It's always a pleasure when I'm around you and when I get to talk to you. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to say hi to all the fans out there.
Well, and we really appreciate it, and you always make yourself available. And tonight we're going to talk about a subject that has been talked about many, many times over the years, but I just thought tonight was a way to pay tribute and the legacy to your late great husband, as everybody knows, Bruiser Brody, King Kong Brody, Frank Goodish, went by several different names. And as we approach the terrible day back in 1988, I couldn't think of a better way but to have you come on tonight on our show and talk a little bit about his legacy and how you've been doing, Jeffrey, and just what life is meant to you after that terrible day back in 1988.
I know, in fact, I went to see Jeff. He's now in Austin. He lives in Austin now. So Father's Day, I went down to Austin to visit with him. And then, of course, his dad's birthday was the 18th of June. So I kind of got to share a couple of real important dates with him because, as you know, he was only 7 years old when he lost his father. And I know he doesn't have a lot of memories of his dad, which is very sad, which a lot of children do have when they lose their father at a young age. But we had a really nice time together, and I'm really hoping to bring him to some of these events because I think it would be really good for him to know just how his father was loved so much, and especially around you, Herb, because you were one of the ones that Frank, you and Larry were one of the ones that Frank really trusted. And that's what I knew. Like when Larry wanted me to write the book, that I couldn't have gone with better people just because of the fact it's Frank liked honesty, and you two and Sam Muchnick were the three that he always said were the most honest people. He always talked so highly of you, and I so appreciate it that it's now getting on to 37 years later, and I'm sitting here talking to you, and I really don't think you know exactly how this means to me and how I'm so happy that we're all going to be in, Iowa, and to the Wrestling Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa, that when everything happened, that I'm going to be with my wrestling family, and it means so much to me.
Well, and it's going to be on that date that we'll all be together, kind of like that extended family. And I just, and that's why I said I thought tonight would be kind of special because he was so well loved in the industry. And I appreciate the kind words. And I know Larry Matasek is always looking down on us. And I kind of joke all the time and say he probably thinks you and I are crazy as can be for continuing what we're doing in this crazy world of professional wrestling. But I know without a doubt if he was still with us, he'd be right here alongside of me, and we'd
You
be
would.
talking to you. And I mean, I remember the nights of the phone calls that him and I would have, and we'd get Frank on, and or when Frank would be in town, we'd sit around and talk about the business. I learned so much from Frank Bruiser Brody about the integral parts of the business, how to negotiate, how to get the respect and give it. And I think after all of these years, I've tried to live up to what like him and Larry and Sam had always
Yeah.
preached, and I think that's why um, we continue to keep his legacy alive because there are so many Bruiser Brody fans out there, and I think since you have become a bigger part of that wrestling family, you can attest to the fact when you're out there at these shows, the fans are just at awe to meet you and to talk about Frank.
I know, and you know the most amazing things, Herb, is a lot of these people were not even born when everything went down with Frank, when Frank left us. And that's what really gets to me, that these are younger than the 36 years, and yet they can tell me they watch the videos on YouTube. And especially there's a young gentleman in that I see in not Waterloo, in the gathering at Charlotte, that when I first met him, the first time I went there, he was just a small child. He's just graduated from high school, and I get a photo every year. And now he is taller than me, and he's always wearing a Bruiser Brody t-shirt. And this was a very young person that started watching him so long ago. And I see him every year, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again at the end of this month too, when the gathering is on. But I want to say something before we get into everything, and I'm sure Frank is looking down and Larry is looking down. I just want to totally congratulate you on the Carl Lara Independent Promoter Award at the CAC, the 59th reunion too, from the 18th to the 20th of August. I am so proud that you are being honored. But that's not all. You have the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2026 that you are being inducted into too. So congratulations, my friend.
Well, again, I appreciate those kind words. The Cauliflower Alley Club, Brian Blair, and the entire group there, Darla, as you know, our dear friend,
Mm-hmm.
and I am honored. Carl was a dear, dear friend. Another gentleman that went before me, and I, I I had I attended his funeral. But Carl was, as I used to say, one of a kind, and to be honored in his name is special. Even though I remember telling Brian Blair that no, there's so many other wrestling promoters around this country, and the Troy Petersons of the world, and the Jason Jones, or um, um, you know. Just all over. I mean, wherever you go, they may have not been doing it as long as I have, but they have put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. But again, Brian was kind of like, no, we're doing this, Darla and you. And so it happened now. And I'm looking forward to that. Now, the next year, St. Louis, that is, somebody put that out there. I'm still have not agreed to that because, as you know, the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame was the brainchild of Larry and myself and Nick Redmeyer and Keith Childress and Tony Costa at the end.
Yeah.
And it was set up and meant to be for the boys and girls that uh, worked the Chase Park Plaza Hotel, the Kiel Auditorium, and went out there and put the butts in the seats. And all I've done is carry the legacy on. So as I told them, and I saw somebody posted that the other day saying, "Oh, the 2026 award," and so in the locker room last month. Called me in there. My son Jason, who I'm still not being mad at, he'd come and I thought there was something going on in the locker room, and I walked in and there's of all people Mickey standing in the locker room, my wife. So I'm thinking, oh, is she okay? Why they got her in here? And that's when they dropped the bombshell that they wanted to let me know that they were going to induct me. And after about 5 minutes trying to explain to them, my wife hollers at me, tells me to shut up. And
There you go.
yeah, but the boys. I mean, I've got a great locker room, as you well know. They love
I
you.
do.
They
Yeah.
love they love the Bruiser Brody. Some of the guys in that locker room was back here in the days. Dennis, Telecon, Gary Jackson, people like that remember Bruiser Brody, and uh, so I've got a lot of longevity in that locker room, and they're still out there doing it. And I know Frank would be proud of them. So the jury
Yeah.
is still out on St. Louis, but You talked about we're going to be in Waterloo, Iowa on the 17th, 18th, and 19th, and you're going to be amongst more of our family members up there on that, and we'll be celebrating, I know, but we're going to talk a little bit about, and when you're, as I said, when you go out to these events, and I know when you come to SICW, you always seem to get yourself involved. And when that crowd starts doing that Brody, Brody, Brody chant, what does that feel to you? What does that mean?
It's such an honor. I've been coming here for so long, and you having the Bruiser Brody Memorial Battle Royal, that you always get me involved somehow. And then all of a sudden, the crowd will start chanting Brody, Brody, Brody. But you know what an honor it is? And I know he's up there smiling that it's been this long and he is still remembered by so many people, that to the family, I mean, it's such an honor because what a legacy he left. And all he wanted to do was to go out there and give the fans the best night of their life. Because he said, without the fans, we don't mean anything. They're the ones that come and see us. And if it wasn't for the fans, who are we? They're the ones that come and create everything and make the promotion. So, and I have to say, he certainly did what he set out to do, but to become a legacy this long after he has left us, and to have new fans, like I just said before, with the young kids that weren't even born, that are fans of him, that never saw him wrestle live or anything. And the thing that gets me too are the tattoos. I mean, I'm totally shocked when people will show me tattoos of them. And I think the one, and you know this too, I think the biggest honor was Randy. Randy, who he told me the story. I just came across his story the other day when I was doing that. And I always remembered the tattoo that he has on his back, you know, of Frank, and the story that he told me, that Frank has created differences in several different people. And to me, that is the legacy that he left, that he actually helped people.
Well, and Randy, his entire back is that picture of Frank, and um, what a great young man who was on the verge of ending his life, and had it not been for going to Kiel Auditorium and watching Frank and having a couple of opportunities to talk with him as they were walking to the car.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, it's just a great feeling. I know it has to be for you to think that that young man would not be with us today either if it wasn't been for Frank having that one last conversation with him.
Yeah, and it was like, as I said, he was ready to do it that night. And then, of course, the last thing Frank turned around and said, what was it? See you next time, kid. And it was like, this guy actually wants to see me. So it changed his whole life. And to me, I think that's one of the greatest stories. That I've heard a lot of good stories, but that would have to top some of the stories, that he actually changed his way of what he was going to do, just because of the words that Frank had said, that Frank gave him the time. But Frank liked the kids. He liked, even though he had to try be this real big, bad, tough guy, and try to keep that image, he couldn't help but giving back when he saw the kids. I see some of the photographs that people post of him with the kids. And this is what I said. That's why I'm so sad that Jeff didn't get to experience exactly who his dad was.
Well, yeah, and I think that as you said earlier, hopefully one day we can get Jeffrey to
Hmm.
make a trip to St. Louis, because I think once he would feel the atmosphere that the energy and the crowd gives when they talk about his father, I think then that's when it will sink in that his father was more of a, I mean, just great. I mean, I saw him in action. I saw him at the Fox Theater talk to the Boy Scouts. uh, on stage before the show, and you could hear a mouse crawl across the
Right.
floor. Like you said, there's this giant of a guy up on stage, and he actually got down off the stage and got down to their level and basically, told them, and it wasn't, eat your vitamins and say your prayers. It was kind of like, hey, life is going to be tough, and you got to be tough. You got to get out there, and you got to get your education and get what you can do, and to stay out of trouble. And and I mean, those kids were sitting there like this. I mean, some
They
of them I didn't
listen.
breathing, but but he was that way. I've got another picture of him. There was a young boy who was in a wheelchair, and we had Frank in for
Amen.
a show one time, and the young man lived in Sojay, Illinois, a community not too far from where I live, and they brought him to. He was a Brody fan. Every time he'd see Frank on TV, the smile would just beam through the TV almost. And Frank come and got down next to him in that wheelchair, and the smile on that individual's face was just priceless. And that's the type of individual Bruiser Brody was. And you have told people that Frank had been preparing for his life after wrestling, and we're going to take a little break right now. We're going to show you a clip of Bruiser Brody in action, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what he was thinking about life after wrestling. We'll be right back.
SICW wrestling fans, SICW is proud to support the Kids Helping Kids paddle auction by the parents of the class of 2028. Advanced all in paddles are $15 or $25 at the door. This great event will be Tuesday, August 5th at the Columbia American Legion. Doors open at 6 and all the action will start at 7 p.m. It will be unique auctions, 50/50s, a cash bar, many more things to do. For additional information, contact Opal at 618-971-7750.
So my first match is with Bruiser Brody. My skill level is I mean I'm greener but I get in the ring and that stupid gene flips in the back of your head and I'm looking at him and I'm going, I'm bigger than he is. So ding ding ding, right? And man, boy, we tie up. And I mean, as soon as we tie up, I'm pushing, right? And he's like, all right, kid, lighten up, kid. So I'm gonna give him, kind of the push off and back out, right? Well, when I do, I kind of push off and I kind of, I clip him in the chin a little bit, right?
Kind of like he's thinking you snubbed it.
He don't know me from Adam. I grab an arm, right? So I'm standing there with a standing arm bar.
And you just grabbed the arm.
Yeah, I just grabbed it.
Tell you to grab the arm.
I just grabbed it, right? So he's about to shoot me off, and I yell, clothesline.
Now you're calling the match.
I'm calling the match.
Boy, you got some balls.
No, I ain't got no brains. And all of a sudden, that furry boot come up out of nowhere, man, and it, wham, he whacked me with that boot. Man, my eyes rolled back in my head. I was like, oh, wow, okay. And he says, come on, we're going for a walk. And man, he takes me, throws me out, right? And he threw me out. People that don't know, there was always that table right next to ringside.
Yes.
And then the chairs were metal chairs with the wood slats. So he takes me and he slams me on that table until he told me don't move, right? So I can hear the chair getting folded up, man. And he come back full force with that chair right across my shoulder blades. And when I tell you that the wood snapped, that is not an exaggeration. There were slats of wood flying everywhere. It sounded like a gun went off, right?
Pick up the table, and you just heard that, Mark.
I felt every bit of it. I thought it went through me.
Well, fans, there you have it. Bruiser Brody in action. And I'm telling you, one of the biggest honors that I would ever get paid from Bruiser Brody is when he would show up to a show, every show. Don't care if it was a couple times a weekend or a couple times a month. He'd always come and say, what do you want tonight, big boy? And I'm thinking, here I am, this small town promoter, and here's this monster that's larger than life asking me what I want tonight. And I remember always just looking up to him and just say, send him home happy. And he did that every time he got out and got in that ring or outside the ring. Kind of the same as you have done when you have been there, and when Travis Cook or Stephen E. or whoever else decided they wanted to get in your business, whether it be uh, Sean Vincent or whoever, you always are Curtis Wild. You could tell that Barbara Goodish had developed some of that right hand from Bruiser Brody. So uh, I'm sure they will talk about that for many, many years to come. But I want to talk about the conversations that Frank and I and Larry had as he was preparing. As I've heard you say many times, he knew the body was wearing down. The aches and pains were getting more frequently, and so he was thinking about doing it. So tell our viewers who maybe haven't heard that before, kind of what he was thinking.
Well, as you said, he knew that the time was coming to an end because he was not going to be able to do exactly what he wanted to do because his body was getting old. He was getting older, and we started an LLC. He started a corporation called BAM, which was Brody Athletic Management, and had hooked up with someone from the University of Texas in San Antonio. And we had bought a wrestling ring from Joe Blanchard, who was the promoter in San Antonio at the time. And what he was planning on doing was they were going through all the things because you have to get all the okays, especially if you're going to a school and doing anything at a school. So they just about had that all set up. And what they were going to do was going to set up a wrestling ring, and he was going to get in the wrestling ring and talk to the kids or young adults. And you have to remember, this was when the DARE program just started off. And the DARE program, as I think most people know, was about the dangers of drugs and alcohol in the youth today. It still is today. But as we know as parents, our kids don't always listen to the authority figure. But just think about it. If you got someone like Frank in the ring, all dressed up in his gear, and he's talking to those kids, I think they would have listened because he was so smart. He knew how to talk and get over, and they would be so fascinated. So I think that they would actually listen, whereas somebody else going in talking about the dangers of an authority figure, kids kind of just turn off, as we know at that age. Another thing is we had a little bit of land that had like kind of a little stream running through it with an old mobile home. And he wanted to make a camp in the summer for the boys that were kind of growing up in the troubled environment, which we know that sometimes all it takes is for somebody to show them a little bit of attention and they can change their lives. Because a lot of times that's all these kids need is somebody to show them attention. Like Randy, like talking about Randy and what happened with him. That to have somebody like Frank to show them a friendship, I think, which is so sad. I'm always so sad when I think about it that it never happened. I think he could have changed quite a few of these young men's life that he never had a chance to. He had so many great plans, and a lot of it was to help the disadvantaged kids of today, the boys of today. And like I said, to have somebody like that to show a little bit of attention, there's no doubt that he could have changed a few people's lives. And that's the sad thing about what happened, that he never had the chance, and these kids never had a chance to have that friendship with somebody like Frank.
Well, and I and Larry had conversations with Frank on numerous occasions on those thoughts, and in fact, to the point where he had even talked about not wanting to just do that in the local area. There, he was going to expand that up in our area. At that time, my wife was on the local school board, and we had done a lot of matches through the school districts around Illinois, in Missouri. And we thought, well, if it will work in his area, why wouldn't it be just like taking the wrestling show on the road? And so, I mean, we were making those plans and making the right connections. And the thing that Frank was going to be able to bring to the table was a lot of the talent that he had made friends with in the business, to bring them in as special guests and make these, like you said, these youngsters realize that, you stay on the straight and narrow and you can go out there and make something out of your life. And like you said, it's just such a misfortune that what happened happened. And I never ever, as you know, I have one dog left, Bruiser.
I know.
We lost Brody, but I had a Bruiser Brody pair. One was a Belgian Mountain Brody who passed away, and of course, Bruiser's a 120-pound four-legged bruiser, and I mean, I miss him dearly because he meant so much to me, and I know Larry and him were the best of friends, and um, a lot of fans watching may not know back in 1988, the week before that terrible incident happened, he was with us here.
Mhm.
And I had a bar and grill location, my wife and I did, in Cahokia, Illinois. And we had taken the upstairs of it and turned it into a lounge and called it the Brody Lounge. And it was a place to where when he was in town, or even if he was passing through and he had a layover, we could bring him there. He could unwind. We could entertain some of our friends, and because everybody wanted to get pictures with him and hear the stories. And but that was I'll never forget that following week when Larry called me and gave me the news. I'm thinking it's a plane crash because we had said that he was with us all that weekend, and that Sunday evening before he flew out Monday morning, we talked about what I felt was the dangers of doing all the traveling from all these different places. And I never gave it a thought to sit there when we were talking, and here, a weekend later, I get that terrible call, and I'll never forget it. And to think that just
No,
that he was here, and I had all these plans going, and I don't know how much he talked to you about the makeup of a match that everybody wanted to see. Bruiser Brody against Hulk Hogan.
oh, he knew he was saving that to the very last. He knew that that was the match that everybody wanted to watch. So Japan was starting to run down a little bit. The Road Warriors were coming in. They were taken over from Stan and Frank, who were the stars at that point, and both of them were getting older, and the Road Warriors were young, and so he knew that Japan was starting to come down. He was doing with you and Larry. That was what he was working on right now. He knew that that was going to be the next step. And he always knew that the best match of all was going to be him and the Hulk. That everybody, Beauty and the Beast, everybody wanted to see that match. So he knew that's what he was keeping for his last kind of hurrah before, doing the things that he really wanted to do with you and Larry, was to have that match.
Yeah,
And it would have been. And it would have
yeah,
been.
and I remember the conversation. Um, Even though we wanted that match to happen, and we knew that if it did, it would have been a major event. And the problem was the trust factor there, uh,
Ah,
and and the opposition wasn't sure that they wanted to trust Frank. And of course, Frank knew he was going to have trouble trusting them. And I remember we were at Larry's house one time when he was in, and we were sitting around, and I just sit there and listen. I was a kid at a candy shop again, listening to him and Larry, and they got Jerry Blackwell. I know you remember Jerry on the
oh,
phone.
I remember. Yes.
Gary and Frank were the best of friends, and there was plans being made that was going to involve Jerry in case there was another screw job, as they say, where it would have been a double whammy. And I'm sitting there going, man, I hope this happens because it's going to be interesting, and unfortunately it didn't. And but gosh, it would have been a mega match,
It
and
would have been. Yep,
and I
that.
think yeah, if the price would have been right, it could have been a nice payday. And but we'll never know. And but we can at least have those memories and talk about it. We're going to take one more break, and we're going to show you another clip of our late great friend Bruiser Brody. And when we come back, we're going to visit a little bit more with the lovely Barbara Goodish. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, What Were They Thinking is proud to be a part of the show with Herb Simmons at SICW.
Show some enthusiasm, Joe. Put on a damn bow tie. We got Herb Simmons. We got the Kill Arena. We got St. Louis, where Mr. Briscoe is in the Hall of Fame. What Were They Thinking? It's available on Backstage Pass. Sportskeedas, our buddies. We talk about the wildest, the craziest, the dumbest, the insane moments in wrestling history that I'm proud to be a part of because, Mr. Briscoe, you're the one that hired me.
And I don't know what I was thinking when I did that, John.
That's not nice. Not nice at all. We love Herb Simmons. And Herb Simmons, you have been there forever. Mr. Briscoe thinks you might be 1,000. I don't think you're a day over 900. We love St. Louis. What were they thinking, Backstage Pass?
A 1 hour time limit. At 290 pounds from Santa Fe, New Mexico, the challenger for the title, Bruiser Brody. 242 pounds from Kansas City, Missouri, NWA heavyweight champion of the world, Harley Race. Your referee for this title match, David Manning.
Well, there you have the introductions by Boyd Pierce. Bruiser Brody, all 300 pounds of him, wants that belt that's around the waist right now of Harley Race, world's heavyweight champion. David Manning is the referee, and he takes that belt and shows it to the crowd, and that is what is at stake here tonight between Harley Race and Bruiser Brody. David Manning gives it to the timekeeper, and we are just about ready to get underway as Manning gives some final instructions to these men. They have met before, and this is something certainly that Bruiser Brody has been looking for. He won the right for this challenge, and here we go, underway, and we will show you as much of this as time permits. That is Bruiser Brody. Harley Race, and Harley Race defends this title many times, and he has held it for a long time, as now he has the side headlock on Bruiser Brody. Here they go into the ropes, off the rope, shoulder tackle, and that staggers Brody. That would knock most men down, but it did not knock down Brody. And now Harley Race picked up in the big bear hug by Bruiser Brody. Harley Race, time after time, finds a way not to lose these matches as he's held that title for so very long. And now I believe he's biting Brody. No, I guess not. He was starting to pull his hair. Brody just holding him up there, squeezing, putting all that pressure on the midsection of Harley Race. There's a punch by Race as he's doing everything to get out of this hold, and that breaks it. And now it is, well, still held on to somewhat by Bruiser Brody. Finally broken by Harley Race, but he's picked up now by Brody. Body slammed, and down goes Mr. Race. Brody with a hip toss down on top, and now we've got Bruiser Brody in control right now early, but don't count out Harley Race because he's a survivor, and he has held this belt for a long time. And now he pulls the trunks, gets Brody up to the count of 1, 2, and down he goes. And Brody telling the referee that he pulled the trunks, but not going to break anything because Brody controls the hold. Harley Race and Bruiser Brody. Headlock kept on by Brody. Here's Brody now as they get up to their feet. And we are going to have to take a break in just a second. We'll keep an eye on it for a moment. And they are into the ropes, and that'll give us time here to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment. And once again, back here at the Sportatorium, it is Bruiser Brody and Harley Race going after it for that World Heavyweight title held by Harley Race. And it is Race with a knee lift and now a punch, and Brody is staggered. David Manning moving in now to warn Harley Race, but Race, as I said before, will do anything to keep that world's heavyweight title. And now he's got Bruiser Brody wrapped up in the corner. As time is beginning to run a little short here on this edition of Texas Championship Wrestling, it is Brody in trouble as Tim Brooks goes, or rather Tim Brooks watching like most of the wrestlers from outside. It is Harley Race going after him as Brody is outside now on the floor. David Manning comes out as we have gone just about 5 minutes into this match. Here comes Brody now as he's taken outside up the aisleway all the way to the door. There's a big metal door over there that he was had his head thrown into. And now Race comes strutting back into the ring. And we are just about out of time here for this edition of Texas Championship Wrestling as Harley Race climbs back into the ring. And here comes Brody down the aisle. And we are sorry we do not have more time to show you the rest of this as it continues. We hope you've enjoyed it. Until next week, this is Steve Harm saying so long, everybody.
Well, there you have it, fans. More great action from our great late friend, Bruiser Brody, the man who, wherever he went, whether you liked him, whether you booed him, I can tell you, it was 100% action in and outside the ring. And Barbara, tell the viewers the transformation of Frank Goodish to Bruiser Brody when you would take him to the airport.
Yeah, well, you know, Frank never lost sight of who he was. He never did become Bruiser Brody. He always remembered he was Frank Goodish. And to, as you said, to know that, we would be in the car dropping him off at the dropping him off at the airport. These were the days when you could pull up and at least be right there at the airport, not like after, you know, how it is now. And he would be dad, he would be husband, he'd give us both a little kiss goodbye. I would watch him. I would actually watch him walk through the airport doors as he's going off, and he automatically transformed into Bruiser Brody. The walk, the stats, you know, holding up, you know, he became Bruiser Brody. But the same thing happened when he came home. I would see him walking towards the door because I was, you know, I could park outside. He was Bruiser Brody. And then when he walked through the doors, he became Frank Goodish because he never lost sight of who he was. Sometimes people in the public eye become the character they create, and they lose sight of who their real self is. He never did. He treated Bruiser Brody was a business to him. That was his business. When he'd sometimes come back from Japan, or if he got tapes from anybody, I'd be in cooking dinner, and I could hear him in the lounge room, and he'd be saying, "Ooh, I could have done that better. Ooh, I don't like that. Ooh." And he would actually be critiquing himself in his matches. Because like I said, all he wanted to do was to give the fans the best night. He learned. He was learning his profession, even right up until the time he couldn't, because he knew he wanted to work and he wanted to do the best he could. And I think that comes from when he failed in football, when he got up to the NFL, but he didn't have the mind. He thought he was, I've got it. I'm good. I don't have to do anything. And he got red flagged. So when he got into wrestling, he was not. He failed in one. He was not going to fail again. So he kept himself Frank Goodish and kept himself Bruiser Brody was his work. So yeah, it was quite fascinating. Yeah, no, he'd failed once. He didn't want to fail again. And we're sitting here talking about him going up to 37 years. So he didn't fail. He didn't fail. No, he didn't.
And you're right. He was his own worst critic.
Mhm.
And Larry would tell him, "Stop it, Frank. Everything was okay. Well, I could have done this. I should have went this. And Larry would just tell him. Of course, you know how Larry was.
Yes.
Frank could have had the worst match in his life, and Larry would not tell him that. And Sam, he was he loved Frank because he made Sam a lot of money, and of course Sam loved Frank to the fact that if you go ahead and tell the story if you would when Jeffrey was born.
I was just about to say that. That's exactly what I was thinking about when you were talking about.
See, we think alike. We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, we're on exactly the same path. I know. What promoter who has Frank working when he gets in, when he knows that he just had his son, and I think Frank was coming from Kansas City to St. Louis that time, went there, and when he checked into the hotel, he got the little piece of paper saying that the message that he had become a father, that Jeff had been born. And what happened? He goes to work that night, and Sam tells him, leave, get on the plane, go visit your wife and new son. And I think he got to the hospital about 10 o'clock that night. And it was, I did not expect to see him. And here it was the most incredible thing when he walks into the room, because not having any family or anything, I was pretty much had a couple of friends that come that helped me. But to see him walk in, I said, well, you're working tonight. And he told me the story about Sam, what Sam had did. And what person does that shows you exactly how Sam was. And like you and Larry too, how you guys do that. For Sam to do that with sending him away from his work to make money, and a lot of people was there to see him and everything, because he had a son and he had to get home to see his son. So
I remember that night. It was actually Larry who told Sam that Frank had just become a father.
Yeah.
Frank thought it was, a few days. Sam thought it was a few days before, and when Larry told him, said, "Yeah," said, "Barbara's in the hospital. It was just today," and Sam looked at Larry and said, "And he's here tonight?" And Larry said, and he told Larry, he said, "Get him in here," because Sam made it a point not to do a lot of trips to the locker room. He always left that to the booker and or to Larry to travel messages back and forth. And he went and got Frank, and Sam, he wasn't too nice to him at first. What in the world are you doing here? Your wife's in the hospital, you're here. And of course, Frank's like, "Whoa, wait a minute." And he said, "Yeah, go." And I'll never forget that. You're right. I think that's where Sam, and he was that way to a lot of the boys, because that's why he had the reputation that he had. And of course, we all have those naysayers out there that, they didn't like Frank, or they didn't like Sam, they don't like Herb, they didn't like Larry.
I know.
But you're always going to have that. I just know that my dealings with Frank Goodish, Bruiser Brody, King Kong Brody.
King Kong, yeah.
Yeah, when I first met him, I was so intimidated by him. This guy was a monster, but it didn't take me long to warm up, and I think he knew right away that I was going to be one of the guys like a Sam Muchnick or a Paul Bosch, who he really respected also.
Right, Paul too, you're right.
Yeah, and I'd heard all those stories about how Frank stands up promoters, and Dick the Bruiser told me that, and of course, then when I found out later on what all happened with that deal, I would be upset with the promoter too that screwed over me. And I asked Frank one night, we were sitting out kind of just relaxing, and I said, "Are you aware of all these rumors and these promoters that try to put the hot butter on you?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "But you know what? When they want somebody to come in and put butts in the seat, they call me." And he said, "But now I got smart." I tell them, if the money's not there, guess what? You're going to have a problem.
Yeah, and and it wasn't like he was trying to be hardball, because he knew what would make money.
Yes.
He knew what would not make money. He was trying to make money for the boys and the promoters.
Yeah,
But
well, and he made the promoters money, but the greed got to some of them, and they found out that he wasn't going to be the one that they could abuse and get by with it, and but I just think that there were so many people that he introduced me to. Stan Hansen, I mean, what a guy. I know him and Stan were the best of friends and had a great run in Japan, and then after 1988 when that happened, I think Stan helped you keep in touch with you, and kind of took Jeffrey and took him on some trips, and on the holidays. So I think that really helped out also.
Yeah, in fact, I just talked to Stan. I had a nice conversation with Stan. We talked to Dave, just to mention Stan. Yeah, had a nice conversation. We always keep in touch and everything. So that's funny. That was one of the people I talked to today was Stan.
Yeah. And the one thing I remember, we always tried to bring in a legend on the Bruiser Brody Memorial every year, and I always tie that in with the Wrestling at the Chase reunion in May of each year, and then the last 3 years, crazily, we added the Fan Fest, which I owe you a great gratitude for always coming in, being a part of that. You never tell me no.
Never.
But they. It's people ask me all the time, why do you continue to honor Frank? And I tell them I love the guy. I mean, he treated me with respect. He gave the fans 100%, sometimes 150%. Never questioned me. Gave me so much good advice on promotions. And I'll never forget the South Broadway Athletic Club. My late friend Tony Costa, God rest his soul.
Right. Yes.
Remember, he called me up. He said, "Hey, let's bring Frank over to the club." And I said, "Well, I'll talk to him, see what his dates are." And Frank always knew about South Broadway because he'd always hear me and Larry talk about. We'd go there, and Larry'd go with me sometimes, and Mickey Garagiola. And so I remember calling Frank, and I told him what we were doing, what we were wanting to do, and he said, "Herb, is that the place downtown St. Louis?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That place you and Larry always talk about going and always having good shows?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, what's the seating capacity there?" And so I told him, and he said, "Well, is that pretty much a sellout?" I said, "Yeah, a lot of months it's sold out." And I never would believe a wrestler would do this, but he said, "Then why do you want me there?" I said, "Well, they just want to have you there to I guess, show you off, And he said, "Herb, you use me when you want me to come in and help fill the seats." He said, "Why spend the money?" That's unheard of. There's no other body would ever think about doing that. And I've always respected him for that. I always he could have took the money and did it, but he didn't. And it was just another opportunity I had to really learn what the real Bruiser Brody was. I mean, I knew he wanted to make money, but he was also in it to be fair.
Right. He always, that's really what it was. He wanted to be fair to people. He didn't want to just take money. He wanted to give as much as what he got. And he didn't want to take anything that he thought he didn't deserve.
Right.
It was just, that was how he was. And as you know, and I think one of the ones that I loved to hear about was at the race course with the horses.
Oh,
I think that was one of the greatest things.
That's one of the pictures that's been out there for all these years.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
And he always was coming up with the quirky ideas. That was really his idea to race that horse down the racetrack with the jockey on his back.
That was so. Yeah. I mean, I still see the pictures, and it's like, oh my gosh. With him with the racehorse on the back and next to the horse. It was what a great gimmick.
Oh yeah. Well, it was his idea, and I should say him and Larry's, to put him up on the marquee of the Checker Dome. And
Oh, with the
yeah,
girls. That's a
yeah. The
great pic. Yeah, that's a great picture. And
young lady is still lives here in Belleville, Illinois. Angie Warner's her name, and she came to Larry's funeral and told us the story about they were up there and Frank is holding her. She's Fay Ray, and he's up on the marquee, and they can't get the wind noise because they had the microphone pinned to her dress, and it was so windy up there you couldn't hear. So Frank actually said, "Wait a minute, I'll fix this," and he took the microphone and clipped it underneath his beard to help muffle out the wind. And that's why it worked. She told that story standing at Larry's funeral home, and I mean, just memories like that, never ever forget. And we talked earlier about the tattoos that some of these people got. Jason, my son, you've seen the tattoo he's got, and not only has he got Frank on his arm, but he's got Larry, and here's a young man that has heard me talk so much about Frank that he feels like he wish he could have been around him and learned a lot more, because he would have. He'd have been like me. He'd have been that sponge just soaking it all in. So, but Barbara, I tell you, we've ate up just about the time here for our show, and as we said, we could talk for days and days. And I bet you the fans would love it, because I know I love it, and I hope you do. You have always come through, and we've got to get ready for Waterloo, Iowa. We've got to get ready for the Cauliflower Alley Club, and I can't wait to see you. I know the fans in Waterloo, Iowa. We're going to be doing the wrestling show this year. Jerry Briscoe's going to be. And when we go to Cauliflower Alley, Abdullah is going to be with us. Abby always loves seeing you. And Miss Malik is going to be there. He's being honored this year in Cauliflower Alley. So, yeah, it's going to be great. So, but I just, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Mickey, we love you, and we just can't wait to see you.
I love you and your family, and you've always kept in touch with me, and the stories that Frank used to tell me about. I mean, he just so enjoyed going down there with you, Larry, and Sam. And yeah, it was, and I am blessed that you and your family is still in my heart, because I love all you guys.
Okay, and we'll see you real soon. And fans, you've been watching SICW Championship Wrestling here each and every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Central. And we just wanted to bring you tonight paying tribute to the legacy of the late, great Bruiser Brody, my dear friend, who I will never, ever forget. We'll see you right back here next Sunday evening. Everybody have a good week.